Permanent Ink by Maxine on AO3.
Chapter 16. He's making you wait? Zero threw his head back as he laughed. Are you kidding me? Oh my god, what a legend. He's not making me, Katsuki snapped. He's not doing it for no fucking reason. He said he needs time to figure stuff out, or whatever. Fuck, it was too late for this. Katsuki had been ready to turn in the second they were done with the birthday cake shit. He was still exhausted from the lack of sleep he'd gotten the night before. And the emotional stress this entire day had caused on top of that wasn't helping. Unfortunately for him, his dumbass friends all wanted to know what happened between him and Deku, so that they followed him back to his room like a bunch of eager puppies when Sero got back from his date with Uraraka. He's a liar, Kaminari sang. He and Kirishima were lounging on the bed. A liar face. I bet he cracks in less than a week. If he does, then he does, Katsuki said, though something fluttered in his stomach at the idea of Deku turning up at his door, like tomorrow, and declaring that they should give this a shot. Ugh, embarrassing. Katsuki clearly never should have allowed himself to have a crush. Not that this was a crush. This was just Katsuki, following orders from the universe. Sure, why not? I'm not gonna push it, though, he continued. I'm just glad you talked to him, Kirishima said. Everything else will fall into place eventually. Sero tipped his head back from where he was sitting on the floor and gave Kirishima an upside-down look before he glanced across to Katsuki, who was in his chair at his desk. Do I get to know what his words are? If he decides to tell people, Katsuki said, without missing a beat. That's up to him. Sure, but I'm definitely the only person in this room right now who doesn't know, right? Sorry, dude, Kaminari said. That's just how it went down. Sero shrugged. Not like I have some burning need to know. Think I'll manage, just wanting to check. How was your date? Kirishima asked, and Sero beamed up at him. Good, I think. You think? Katsuki repeated, lifting an eyebrow. Well, yeah, I mean, Sero hummed a little. It's still Midoriya's birthday, so that was kind of a hanging over right now. But she seemed like she had a good time. Kaminari flopped into his side and hung off the bed so that he could throw Sero a leaning grin. Is this the start of another soulmate adventure? Do you think your words are going to be from Uraraka? I have no idea, Sero said, chuckling as he reached out to poke Kaminari in the forehead. Kaminari dipped back onto Katsuki's pillow. I'm not going to think about that yet. Then he twisted around so that he could give Kirishima an eager look. Kirishima, though! He could be the next one. Kirishima immediately looked flustered. My birthday's not until October, he tried. But all of them, even Katsuki, just stared at him until his cheeks slowly turned pink. Good thing Mina's birthday is in 2 weeks then, Kaminari said, eventually. And Kirishima made a wheezing kind of sound. Her words could be anything, he cried. They'll probably have nothing to do with me. For fuck's sakes, Katsuki grumbled, and both Kaminari and Sero snickered. Right, Sero droned. Or they could have everything to do with you. Kirishima buried his face in his hands. We can go back to talking about Katsuki's drama any time now, he mumbled. Mina's way too cool for me. Kaminari kicked out a leg and nudged Kirishima with his foot. Oh, come on. That's bullshit and you know it, Katsuki said, and Kirishima lifted his face enough to shoot him a stare. She's a fucking head over heels for you. You've both been dancing around each other for goddamn months. Kirishima sputtered as Kaminari gave a sage nod and pointed at Katsuki. Kachan's right. After he flipped out about Midoriya and relationships and stopped ignoring everything happening around him, he got really perspective. Shut up. No, I didn't, Katsuki growled. Are you assholes leaving anytime soon? I'm tired. Oh, he's asking, Sero said, eyebrows shooting up. Normally he threatens us with explosions if we don't get the hell out. Can still do that, Katsuki said, lifting a hand and letting a few harmless sparks pop among his palm. Sarah rolled his eyes. I feel properly in danger now, thanks. Hey, Kaminari was fishing beneath Katsuki's pillow, and Katsuki's eyes widened as he pulled out the All Might plushie Deku had returned to him. What the fuck is this? Oi, don't touch that! Katsuki snapped, lunging up from his seat and snatching it out of Kaminari's hands. Nosy asshole, who said you could go grabbing my shit? Your pillow was lumpy, Kaminari said, eyes somewhat wide. I was just trying to figure out what was up. Holy shit, did Midoriya give you that? No, Katsuki spat, because he won it fair and square all by himself, thank you very much, and it didn't matter that Deku had just give it back to him. That didn't count. It wasn't like a fucking gift or some shit. Zero snorted. Kirishima's eyes crawled up his forehead. You sure? It looks old, Kaminari said, crawling at his hand in an attempt to get a better look at the stupid thing. Katsuki shoved it behind his back like an idiot. I'm pretty sure it wasn't in here before. Or maybe you're an unobservant dipshit and didn't notice it. Or it definitely wasn't in here before. Kaminari launched back again, elbows resting on the bed and propping himself up with his fists. He looked entirely too smug. I mean, we all know, dude. We know you're soulmates, and we know you're into him. You don't have to be all weird about it. Katsuki scowled. I'm not being weird, he grumbled. He pulled the plushie back out and briefly contemplating exploding it. But that was obviously never going to happen because apparently he was turning into some kind of sentimental loser. Deku didn't fucking buy this for me or anything. He just returned it. It used to be mine when we were kids. Oh my god, Sero said. There was a wide grin plastered across his face. Not sure he likes you, and yet still returns a decade-old that you kept, Kirishima added. Honestly, though, Kaminari spoke up again. Who's he kidding? He told me he never thought of you like that before, which would be the biggest darn lie from anyone in our class. What the fuck? Katsuki said, nose scrunched up. Sarah snickered. Right? Like, I'm decidedly not into dicks. No offense. And I've definitely still stolen an ungodly amount of looks in the locker room. Kirishima raised his hand a little, looking sheepish. Also guilty. Katsuki made a face. Wow, that was way more information than he ever needed to know. He leveled a glow on them all. Okay, gross. That's what you get for being so pretty, Kaminari said, flattening his other hand beneath his chin and fluttering his eyelashes. Fuck you, Katsuki said. I'm not pretty. Straight up, not true, bro. He looks like his mom, Kirishima told him. The other two. And shit. Now Katsuki was gonna have to rethink his stance on how much he was willing to let that idiot get away with. Also, double shit. He couldn't even deny that. Really, god damn it. Seriously? He said loudly. You all can leave any time now. What's your next step? Sarah asked, ignoring him entirely. Katsuki's hands clenched into a fist before he realized he was still holding the fucking All Might plushie, and he quickly tossed it onto his desk before dropping back down on his chair with a noisily exhale. Next step for what? Midoriya. You guys got plans over the break, or is he just supposed to medicate over his feelings? He definitely has for you. Shut up about that, Katsuki said, leaning back in his chair and scrunching a hand through his hair. That's a big difference between the lingering childhood, whatever he has for me, and fucking romantic shit. Kirishima sighed. Katsuki? I'm serious. Katsuki pinned the red hair with a glare. I know I'm important to him or whatever, but that doesn't mean a damn thing. Which is why you gotta take him on a date or something and make him see the light, Sero said, as he held his hands and waggled his fingers. Katsuki's eyes widened. I'm not taking him on a fucking date. Ugh, Kaminari muttered. You're gonna want to get over that reaction to the word date real fast, man. Katsuki scoffed. I don't do dates. He threw a hand in Kaminari's direction. We didn't go on dates. If we were actually dating, I might have made you, Kaminari said thoughtfully, glaring up at the ceiling. Thank fuck we weren't then. You're thinking about it all wrong, Kirishima said. But you've got candlelit and flower on the brain, but that doesn't have to be like that. Katsuki paused, squinting at Kirishima a bit. Go on. You can do whatever you want, Kirishima suggests. You only got a few days off before you go to your work studies, right? Just hang out with him. We're already going hiking, Katsuki said. Though, thoughtfully, he'd only just remembered literally that second that they vaguely made those plans. He'd have to remind Deku. That's perfect! Kirishima exclaimed, bouncing a little on the mattress. Honestly, anything that gives you guys a chance to talk some more. Today was rough. He winced a little, and Katsuki found himself doing the same before he crossed his arms over his chest and sank lower in his seat. We just had a whole ass conversation about shit, he said, not a little defensively. Kirishima held his hands up in placement sort of way, which just ruffled Katsuki's feathers even more. I know, he said. You made him wait all day, though. I'm just saying. We were in class all day, Kaminari pointed out, but that only made Kirishima roll his eyes and direct a glare sort of look in his direction. Dude, just, it's over. It doesn't matter, he mumbled. Midoriya seems okay in the end. Are you still mad at me? Katsuki asked suddenly, without really meaning to. He regretted it a little when Sero blinked at him, but the way Kirishima's eyes went slightly round meant his own before darting away pretty much had answered his question. Not mad, he replied carefully. He palmed the back of his neck. His bottom lip tugged between his teeth. I don't know what I am. If you are, it's fine, Katsuki said. He huffed out an annoyed sigh. At least someone is. Midoriya, was it? Kaminari asked. For some fucking reason, no. Sure seemed like he was heading that direction this morning, Sero said. Well, Katsuki gave a jerky shrug. Now he claims he's not. Bottom line, Kirishima spoke up again. Having a few days away from everyone else where you definitely won't get interrupted is probably a good thing. You need it. He wasn't wrong. While they left things in a decent place that night, Katsuki knew he and Deku had hardly resolved everything. That would take time, though. But they could start with finalizing their plans for summer break. Somehow, Katsuki hadn't expected that seeing Deku the following morning would be anything other than totally normal. He only realized he maybe should have considered that Deku might be completely fucking weird about everything when he walked through the class door and saw him jolt in his seat as their eyes caught. His leg banged under the underside of the desk. Deku winced, his cheeks flushed before he reached down to rub his knee. Toroki, who's been hovering beside Deku's desk, glanced back over his shoulder at Katsuki. His eyes narrowed briefly, but he just muttered something to Deku before walking away. Deku barely seemed to hear him, though, his gaze stuck on Katsuki and tracking him as he walked over and dropped sideways onto his seat so that he could twist around to face the other boy. Deku's eyes went wide and a little uncertain. They darted across Katsuki's face for a moment before he finally spoke, the voice coming out slightly breathless. Morning, Kachan. Hey, Katsuki returned, which was different than his usual greeting of flat-out silence, or a reluctant grit on his good days. That was combined with the fact that he was actually angled towards Deku instead of ignoring him and facing in the front of the class. It was apparently a lot for Deku to deal with. Katsuki watched the colors in his cheeks slowly deepen and couldn't stop the sharp grin that stretched across his own face in response. He draped an arm over the back of his chair and rested his chin on his hands. What's up? Both Jiro and Sarah were watching, not even bothering to hide it. Out of the corner of his eye, Katsuki thought he could see Shiro pointing an extra limb with an ear at the end of it in their direction. As well, but whatever. Fuck it. He didn't care. Not much, Deku said. He swallowed, looking flustered. Katsuki arched his eyebrow. Your face is all red. Deku promptly pressed his hands to his cheek and pouted at him. Kachan, don't make fun of me. I'm not. Just stating facts, nerd. Deku groaned a little, shifting one hand over so that he could palm the back of his neck with it instead. I wasn't sure how this warning was gonna go. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Deku explained. Nothing. I just didn't know if you were gonna pretend, he trailed awkwardly, and Katsuki rolled his eye a bit. I ain't gonna pretend shit, he said, letting his arm fall away from his chin and resting at the back of his seat. I'm not gonna act like things haven't changed, Deku. He hesitated for a beat, then frowned and continued. Unless you want me to? No! Deku said quickly. He shook his head. I don't want that, but he glanced sideways at Sero, who jerked at the sudden attention and immediately turned to begin a loud conversation with Kirishima. Sero was more subtle about it, at least, casually turning her eyes to the notebook on her desk and starting to doodle absently. The corner of Deku's mouth tugged upwards in amusement. Ignore them, Katsuki murmured. I thought we weren't going to say anything, it's all, Deku said, his voice quieter than before. Katsuki shrugged. Sure, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk to you. Okay, well, good. Deku smiled at him. I'm glad, then. If any of these lame extras think that this means something, fuck 'em. They don't know anything. Deku chuckled. Okay, Gachan. There was a buzzing in Katsuki's pocket. How's the rest of the birthday go? He asked as he pulled out his phone to see who was bothering him. Todoroki, of course. If I catch you acting like a dick to Midoriya again, we're gonna have words. Katsuki blinked. It was good, Deku said, grinning faintly. Midoraki even joined us for cake when she got back, and then I talked to Todoroki for a while. Clearly, Katsuki grumbled. He glanced up at Deku. You told him? Oh, yeah. Only him, though. I decided not to say anything to Ida about it. Katsuki grunted, typing out a quick reply and trying to stay focused on Deku the entire time. Fair enough. How do you take it? Okay, but dick is kind of my default setting, though. I'm not joking, Bakugo. There's a first. Bakugo. I'm not going to be an asshole to him anymore. Deku let out a nervous laugh. I think he'll be fine. Katsuki looked beyond Deku to where Icy Hot was sitting on his desk. Glaring at a pair of them, he snorted. You sure about that? Deku followed Katsuki's sight of line and glanced back over his shoulders. He let out a deep sigh, making some sort of gesture with his hand that Katsuki couldn't see. I'm sure, he said, brows drawing down in what almost seemed a scowl. We got to be able to work together when we're at Endeavor's agency, so I told him to leave this alone. I can handle it. Is being me? Katsuki asked. It's being our past, Deku corrected him. And everything we've been through. I don't need anyone trying to play hero for me now. What good does that do? He turned back to Katsuki, eyeing him for a moment before he smirked. But yes, I can handle you too. Something smarked up Katsuki's spine. This time, it was his face that grew warm, and he watched as Deku beamed innocently at him. Fuck. What a smartass. Katsuki ducked and started to pull things out of his bag. Like to see you try. Oh, I know you would, Deku said dryly. Katsuki felt his ears burn. He ignored Deku's soft laugh and shifted his face the front of the classroom. A few minutes ticked in silence. Katsuki arranged his notebooks and pencils on his desk, then checked his phone again. Good. He deserves basic human decency from his soulmate. As a bare minimum. What the fuck even is that? We're going to have words. I would have said, I'll kick your ass if you step out of line, but I thought you might take it as a challenge. That would hold more weight if you ever bothered to try kicking my ass before, instead of throwing fucking matches. Really? That was over a year ago. Fuck off, like I give a shit. Are you taking this seriously? Midoriya told me not to get into it with you, but I'll go against him if you do anything stupid. Whatever, Todoroki. I've never been more serious in my life. ... Okay. Katsuki huffed and tossed his phone into his bag. That could have gone worse. Kachan? He glanced back at Deku. The other boy was leaning forward in his seat. 4 arms braced on his decks. Exam starts tomorrow. You ready? Katsuki scoffed. Of course I am. Oh. Deku chewed the bottom of his lip, and Katsuki squinted at him. You're telling me you're not? No, I think I'm pretty set. I was going to review a few things, I guess just to make sure. Katsuki eyed him for another few seconds before something clicked. You want to review together? Yes, Deku replied instantly. Katsuki smirked, and Deku cleared his throat somewhat sheepishly. If you don't mind, that is. For fuck's sake, Deku, why would I mind? Katsuki tipped his chair onto its back legs and moved that brought him several inches closer to Deku. You're gonna spout some bullshit about how it's inappropriate if I suggest studying in my room? Deku's cheeks went pink again, but he didn't back away, just arched an eyebrow a bit and grinned. Nothing inappropriate about it yet. Yet, Katsuki replied, and Deku hummed a little. God, Katsuki really wanted to lean the rest of the way in and. After dinner? Deku asked. Yeah, that's fine, Katsuki said quickly. Hey, we're still hiking over the break, right? Deku blinked. An excited look washed over his face. Oh, sure, of course. Just tell me when. I'll let you know, Katsuki said. And then Aisawa slouched into the room, and he was forced to let his chair drop back down onto all fours, putting him out of Deku's space. The next couple of days passed in a blur as they shift focus to dealing with their end of term exams. They sat for the written tests during the day and then hit the books in the afternoon as soon as classes let out. If Katsuki thought studying together with Deku was going to end up doing some kind of cliche montage into not studying, he was sorely mistaken. Not that he didn't feel prepared for their exams, but truthfully, he'd been a little more distracted in the weeks leading up to Deku's birthday, and he found himself needing to review some of the recent lessons more than he anticipated. That, plus Deku clearly had no ulterior motives in mind and had shown up in his room with the timely layout of everything that he wanted to go over and how long he wanted to spend on each subject. Considering he was one of the smartest students in 2A, right up there with Katsuki, he figured he could roll with the nerd's plan. And then, of course, there was his dumbass group of friends that hadn't been at it for most than an hour the first night before Kirishima, Kaminari, and Mina all crowded pathetically in his doorway and asked if they could join, which was pretty damn brave of them, honestly, since they persisted with begging for help even after they saw that Katsuki had Deku alone in there. Deku grinned and welcomed them with open arms, though much to Katsuki's displeasure. Where's Sero? He asked, reluctantly stepping aside so the three of them could trot happily through the door and grab various seats around the room. Mina had some garnished pink black tiger striped beanbag with her, and Katsuki made a face at it. He's studying with Uraraka, Kirishima said, and Mina giggled. Studying, she repeated, making air quotes with her fingers. Kirishima gave Deku an awkward look. Sorry, dude. But Deku only shook his head, a smile curving onto his face. It's fine. They're cute, aren't they? He looked down, fidgeting with his pencil for a moment. Katsuki took the opportunity to toss the truly gnarly glare at Kirishima's direction, which made the other boy wince. I'm happy for her. I hope it works out. Maybe she'll get to be happy for you soon, Mina said, burnishly. And it hadn't even been 2 minutes yet, but Katsuki already deeply regretted letting these idiots into his room. Mina! He snapped. She just rolled her eyes at him. Deku laughed, a tad nervously, but didn't seem upset or anything. So weird being surrounded by people who know. Invite half and half, Katsuki grumbled. We'll make it a party. So what do your words say, Midoriya? Mina piped up again, leaning forward in her beanbag chair eagerly. Mina! Kaminari groaned, while Kirishima buried his face in his hands and murmured, Oh my god. It's none of your damn business, Katsuki forced out through clenched teeth. Deku just blinked at her. What? Mina frowned at all of them. I can ask, and if he says he doesn't want to share, then I'll drop it. I really don't want to share right now, Deku said, and Mina nodded. Totally no problem, Midoriya. She stuck out her tongue at Katsuki. See, consider it dropped. Except, then she promptly turned back to Deku again the second she finished speaking. I was just curious if Baku said something sweet to you once, upon a time or something. Katsuki was going to strangle her. Both Kirishima and Kaminari cringed. Deku snorted. Have you met him? Mina let out a loud laugh, at the same time saying, Aw, oh no, it went that way, huh? Little bit, Deku said, lifting his hands and holding his thumbs, and forging so close together that they were basically touching. Katsuki felt like he should be offended or something, except it definitely had gone that way, and he was just going to have to accept that people were either going to flip their shit about it, or apparently just possibly be completely nonchalant, as Pinky currently was. Kirishima looked as bewildered as Katsuki felt. At least, Kaminari had started rifling through his math textbook. I guess not every soulmate story can be like 100% romantic, Mina mused. She tapped her finger against her chin thoughtfully. Although, there's something to be said for enemies to lovers trope. What the fuck? Katsuki said. We weren't enemies. Mina waved her hand. Rivals, childhood friends, all good stuff. Estranged childhood friends, featuring one emotionally constipated ball of anger and one seemingly go happy sunshine boy with underlying angst, Deku offered, and Mina practically squealed at him. Kaminari's head snapped up. Oh, that's a good one! Katsuki frowned, his brows drawing down. What? He said again, voice a gruffy matter more than anything. I spent a lot of time on the internet, Deku said, like that was supposed to explain anything. He looked amused. Hero forums and fan boards and whatnot. Dinky, Mina cried. He's one of us! Say no more, my friend, Kaminari said, giving him a wide grin. We know what you're about. You gotta give me all your favorite hero pairings, Mina gushed. Denki and I totally disagree on which way Hawk swings, but I think we've got Muriel down. That's just because I want him to swing my way, Kaminari said with a dreaming sigh, before he snapped his head against his textbook. I'm so fucking jealous of Tokoyami. He doesn't even know how good he has it when he interacted with him. Katsuki found himself mouthing, what the fuck, yet again, before he decided he didn't want to know. He really didn't. I have no idea what's happening right now, Kirishima spoke up. But seeing as how we barged in on you guys one-on-one time, I feel like we should probably start studying before Katsuki actually explodes. Okay. Kirishima could maybe be back in Katsuki's good graces now. By the time Sunday afternoon rolled around, they were all exhausted. They made it through their exams, though having just finished their practical portion that morning, and it looked like everyone had passed. Katsuki dropped onto one of the couches in the common room with Kirishima and Mina as they joined shortly by Jiro, Yamamomo, and Ajiro. Most of the rest of the class had gone off to finish packing. Some people were heading home that evening, though it seemed like a majority of them would be leaving in the morning. Katsuki thought he heard a few people talking about going off campus to grab dinner, but he couldn't be bothered. He was ready to crash any second now, honestly, but he'd probably be a few more weeks before he saw Kirishima and the others again, so he was forcing himself to grab what time he still could with them. My brain is fried, Kirishima moaned. I'll do the practical shit 10 times if that meant we never have to take the written exam ever again. Same, Mina said, a similar whine to her tone. She let her head fall sideways to rest against Kirishima's shoulders, and he immediately turned a shade of red that he nearly matched his hair. At least there's no training camp this year. Right, just our work studies, Jiro said dryly. That's not school, though, Mina said. It hits different. It's going to be strange not seeing everyone for so long, Ajiro said. With camp and all, it felt like the break passed in a blink of an eye last year. We, hardly spent any time apart after all. Katsuki snorted. Oh, really? It felt like that for you, huh? Ojiro's eyes went in a bit. Right. Sorry. We should have planned a party, Mina cut in generally. I can't believe no one thought of that! You're usually the one that leads the charge, Yamamomo said. Even she looked tired, her long hair out of her usual ponytail and draped over her shoulders. She had a steaming cup of tea in her hand. We just had Deku's birthday thing, Katsuki pointed out. How many fucking parties do we need? This one would have been different, Mina insisted. Maybe we could all get together somewhere before our work studies and start? Most of us have a few days off, right? No way, Katsuki said. Already got plans. Mina straightened up at that, pinning him with a look she got when she thought she was about to discover some hot new gossip. Oh, she said innocently.
Are you going somewhere with Midoriya? Wow, subtle, Jiro said, as Kirishima dug his elbow into Mina's side. She ignored both of them. I mean, they live near each other, she said, waving an arm in Katsuki's direction. And they'll be at the same work study. I was just wondering. As a matter of fact, came Deku's voice suddenly, and Katsuki craned his head around to see him walking into the room with Todoroki trailing not too far behind him. We're going hiking on Tuesday. Mina made a face. Ew. That sounds nice, Yamamomo said politely, swatting at the other girl's arm. I'm looking forward to it, Deku said. He rounded the corner of the couch, and Katsuki automatically shifted to the side to make room for him. Todoroki was left to settle on one of the other couches. I used to go hiking when I was young, Ojiro said. It's been a while. You're not invited, Katsuki said quickly, and Ojiro rolled his eyes. Wouldn't dream of intruding, he murmured. Kachan, Deku scolded gently. Katsuki scowled, but then Deku suddenly had his hand on Katsuki's arm, and whatever mild irritation he was feeling vanished entirely. It's been years for me too, Deku said, as Katsuki blinked wide-eyed at him. Even longer since we went together. We were in elementary school when your dad took us, weren't we? He turned to look at him, and Katsuki blinked some more before realizing he'd been asked a question. I don't think you could count that shitty walk through the park as hiking, he said. We're actually going up a mountain this time. Your dad called it hiking. He was being extremely fucking generous. We were too young for the good trails back then. It was close enough, Deku murmured. He glanced back at the others. We used to go tromping through the woods all the time when we were kids. Kachan's more outdoorsy than you think. Again, Katsuki said, lifting his hands and letting it fall onto Deku's head so that they could either ruffle his hair or just sink his fingers into his thick mess. He wasn't really sure what the fuck his brain was doing. He just felt the urge again and let himself cave to it for once. Less woods and more lame patches of tree a block away my damn house. Deku was looking at him again. His cheeks were pricked. Really? He asked, and then chuckled. So much for being interpreted Avengers. Katsuki vaguely nodded that aside from the mildly annoyed sound coming from Todoroki's direction. The rest of the room had gone quiet. He ignored all of them, tugging instead on one of Deku's wild curls and feeling a rush of warmth in his gut when Deku grinned at him. The world seemed huge when you were 5, he murmured. A door banged open somewhat behind them, and jumbled sounds of people trying to talk over each other quickly searched their group. Katsuki let his hand fall away from Deku's hair and glanced over at the back of the couch, just in time to see Uraraka making a beeline right for him, with a look of unfurling horror splash across her face. Bakugo Katsuki, she growled, and then before he could even blink, she was reaching out a hand to shove his shoulder. Sarah was right behind her. Uraraka, come on, he plagued, but Katsuki abruptly felt himself go weightless as he was launched up into the air. What the fuck? The rest of their class burst into startled protest and jumping to their feet. Deku, in particular, was crying out, Uraraka! As he shot a black whip at Katsuki and hooked an intro around his ankle. Totally unnecessary, really, because Katsuki could get himself back down with his own quirk easily enough. Oi, what the hell? He complained, throwing his hands behind him and getting ready to do just that, but Uraraka jabbed a finger in his direction. Don't you dare, she snapped. I have something to say with you, and you're going to stay up there and listen. I'm sorry, dude, Sarah said, digging his hands back into his hair. I'm so sorry. I thought she knew. Oh, shit, Kirishima said, his voice hushed. Mina took a step in Uraraka's direction, hand extended towards her. Honey, maybe you should. You're Deku's soulmate? Uraraka said, ignoring everyone else. Her eyes went pinned on Katsuki. Deku made a distressed sound, and Katsuki went still when he was floating in the air several feet above the heads of his classmates. He took a glance around, but there was only a couple people in the room who didn't know. Yamamozu, assuming ears hadn't told her, and Ojiro. Not terrible. He scowled down at Uraraka. And? And you've known for months. She looked pissed, but her voice was shaking, and Katsuki could see that her eyes were welling up with furious tears. You've known since April, and you still let me go out with him. Let you? Katsuki scoffed.
I didn't let you do shit. Some fucking words on my arm don't control who. That's bullshit, and you know it. Uraraka shouted. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell him? Didn't he deserve to know? He was going to find out eventually anyways. 2 months, Uraraka said. We dated for 2 more months after your birthday. That's 2 months I could have spent focusing on something else. 2 months I could have spent not getting my hopes up. 2 months where Deku and I could have been friends again instead of wasting time trying to figure out why he broke up with me. Kachan had nothing to do with that, Deku interrupted, in a pained voice. I told you why I. Uraraka held her hand up in his direction, and he cut himself off with a frown. His eyes never left Katsuki's. I want to know why, Bakugo. Katsuki's jaw clenched. His chest felt tight. It's got nothing to do with you. Except it does! Uraraka cried. That! She gestured angrily at her own arm where her skin was smooth and unmarked. Affected more than just you, and it isn't just your life. Fuck that. I had to work out my own shit before I went around. Why didn't you tell him? Uraraka demanded again. And something inside Katsuki snapped. Because I was fucking scared, alright? He spat, shocking himself with how purely honest the statement was and how easily he'd managed to throw it at her. I was scared, what it meant, and I could barely deal with my own goddamn emotions, let alone his. You were scared of being rejected, maybe? Uraraka bite out. Scared he might turn you down? Katsuki tensed, his hands curled into a fist. That's not. It's true, right? After you spent your entire life rejecting him, I can't imagine the thought didn't cross your mind. Uraraka wiped at her cheeks with the back of her hands, but she didn't let any tears fall yet. You would have deserved it. Uraraka! Deku tried again, but she just shook her head. Around the room, everyone else looked awkward as fuck. Yamamozu had a hand covering her mouth. Ojiro clearly wanted to be anywhere else, but seemed uncertain whether he should move or not. That's not what I wanted to say, Uraraka murmured, her gaze falling for a moment. I got distracted, because I'm mad at you. You asshole. But this isn't about me. When she looked up again at him, there was fire in her eyes instead of any trace of tears. You're lucky, Bakugo. You're really damn lucky. I know I didn't know everything, but Deku told me enough. Katsuki felt something in his stomach sink. He darted a quick look at Deku, but Deku was watching Uraraka, his chest heaving. I know you were a total jerk to him before coming to UA, Uraraka continued. I watched him reach out to you again and again for months when we were first starting here. But you shut him down every time. And even after you started to mend things, you still never really let him in. You've been keeping your distance from him for as long as I've known you both, and I saw how much it hurt him. So listen to me, Bakugo, and listen good. Like he had a choice. He was still hovering in midair, twisting around so that he was looking down at everyone. Even if he had some kind of reply, he didn't think he'd be able to get the words out. He finally found himself wanting to hear what Uraraka had to say. She had a familiar air about her, something fierce and determined. The look on her face reminded Katsuki of when they'd gone up against each other in the sports festival last year. If you ever hurt him again, she started, and there was a dangerous quality to her tone. I'm going to glue a pair of incombustible gloves to your hands and launch you into orbit so that he never has to look at your stupid face again. Are we clear? Katsuki opened his mouth, some sort of shitty response probably about to roll off his tongue, out of habit. But Uraraka just nailed her eyes, and thankfully didn't give him the chance to fuck this up. Are we clear? She repeated. Fucking hell. Weirdly enough, for whatever reason, Katsuki felt his chest unclench. He wasn't even mad. He didn't think he'd actually been anything remotely close to mad since Uraraka had marched in here and sent him flying towards the ceiling. At least Deku had someone in his corner who was willing to obliterate his ass if he screwed up, and wasn't afraid to say it. Crystal, Katsuki said, with complete sincerity. Uraraka gave him a single nod. Deku's my best friend, she said. He deserves the world. I don't even have to ask if he's already forgiven you for everything. If you even bothered to apologize. He did, Deku said softly. But Uraraka only spared him a brief glance before returning her attention to Katsuki, who blatantly realized that Deku had let Blackwood dissipate at some point. He was staring at the ground now, arms folded tightly over his chest instead. See? Uraraka said. Then he definitely forgave you already. And that's if he ever held anything against you in the first place. He's got a heart of gold and more patience for your bullshit than probably any other person on the planet. So you better not take advantage of that. She pressed her fingers together slightly, not bothering to give him any warning that she was releasing him. And Katsuki tumbled to the ground before he could right himself or try to use his quirk to slow his descent. He heard some of the others make concerned noises, and Mina muttered a quick, "Oh my god, Ochako." But no one stepped forward to help him, and he was actually grateful for it. He got to his feet in a hurry, turning to meet Uraraka's hard gaze head on. Are you done? He asked. I think I covered everything, she replied. Her brows furrowed a bit, though, and something in her eyes shifted as she watched him. Katsuki waited, and after a moment, Uraraka spoke again. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. You're the definition of invincible, huh? Katsuki shrugged. Soulmates, he said simply. If he wants to be with you, then I support him, Uraraka said. But you trample over his heart, and I will absolutely end you. Katsuki nodded. Understood. He let his eye drift towards Deku, and found that the other boy was already looking at him. For what it's worth, he said quietly to Uraraka, to Deku, to the entire fucking room, and maybe the world at large. I don't plan on hurting him again. Deku's eyes went wide. Good, Uraraka said. She let out a breath, and the fight in her seemed to drain away with it. Her shoulders relaxed, and even her face softened a bit. I still think not telling us was a dick move, but I guess you weren't really obligated to. I don't know what the actual, proper etiquette is for soulmate stuff. Fucking tell me about it, Katsuki grumbled. There are books, Yamamozu spoke up. There are so many books. You guys, if you asked me, I could have lended it to you. Uraraka gave her a sheepish smile. Maybe some other time. She reached behind her, fishing around for Sero's hand. Right now, Sero's going to show me his room. I am? Sero asked, blinking, and then Uraraka arched her eyebrows at him and quickly nodded. Oh, right, yeah, I am. She started to pull him out of the room, but then paused, dropped his hand again, and spun on her heel to march over to a suspiciously quiet Deku. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around his shoulder and tugged him closer. Deku tensed up immediately, but Uraraka whispered something in his ear. It sounded like some kind of apology for the few words Katsuki could hear, only because he was standing so close. Uraraka didn't let Deku go, and it only took the space of two breaths or two to relax him into her hug. His arms came up, wrapping gently around Uraraka's waist, and then a moment later, he was tightening his hold even more and ducked his head to press against the juncture of her neck and shoulder. She murmured something else to him, bringing a hand to card through his hair for a few seconds, and then she stepped back. Deku pulled away as well, and Uraraka turned and headed her way out to Sero to take her again. Come on, she said, and this time they made it to the outskirts of the room before Katsuki called out to her. Hey, Uraraka. She stopped short, sending him a guarded look. Katsuki lifted his chin a bit. You're the only person in this class who has any balls. Uraraka blinked for a moment, before the corner of her mouth tugged upwards. Don't you forget it either, she said, and then she swept out of the room with Sero in tow. Let's talk about the whole AO3, being down for, a whole day. For a little context, yesterday's video I was able to bring out because I had that, page uploaded before it got down, right? So, luckily I was still able to record yesterday's video, which I recorded on Monday. I'm recording this one Tuesday, literally not as soon after. It's actually been a couple hours after. Obviously I was at work when it came out, when, it was back and stuff. But yeah, Dark Ages, never want to do that again. I was going insane. I was texting friends who don't even read fan fiction or even care about AO3 and making it their problem as well, to the point where one of my friends texted me, I really hope AO3 comes back because I don't think I could handle your manic state anymore. Which I wasn't manic, I was just texting them about how I couldn't read my fanfics about a black cat and a loud bird adopting a green bunny. Like, how hard is it to just sit there and listen to me rant about the fact that I can't have my cute found family with a bit of hurt comfort? You know, I just want my found family. That's all I want. That's all I care about, right? And I can't have it, so I'm gonna make it everyone's problem. Okay, on to the action notes of the fanfic. So, Bakugo and Midoriya, the whole morning, the whole, like, when they were at their desk and talking, the whole little, I felt like it was a little flirtatious. And I was sitting here, like, smiling. I'm like, oh, look at them. They're so cute. They're so adorable. And Midoriya says he doesn't have feelings for Bakugo. Please, man. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Denial is a river in Egypt. You are crushing on Bakugo. I don't know why I had to be the dramatic pauses. I just had to. I don't know. Okay, next one. Okay, so Mina being in fandom and Kaminari being in, like, fandom culture and stuff like that, that makes sense. You know, that makes sense. I'm sitting here like, yeah, that checks out. And then Deku being in fandom culture, I was like, oh, you know what? I've never thought about that. But yeah, it makes sense. Like, I feel like he would also, because he probably had unrestricted internet access, and we all know what happens when you're young and have unrestricted internet access. You become addicted to AO3 like I do. Yeah, I'm addicted, okay? I admit it. I am addicted, but come on, he's my husband. I love them, and she's my everything, okay? My husband is my everything, and she will always be the love of my life, and I love them so much because he's amazing, and I love them. Okay, moving on. So, Bakugo wanting to spend time with his, like, group of friends before summer break comes out and before the, you know, not being able to see them for a while. So he's, like, bearing all his tiredness just to hang out with his friends a little more. That is adorable. That is cute. I know damn well he would never admit it to any of his friends. But the fact that he just wants to spend more time with them is adorable, and it's cute, and I love it. Okay, we're gonna talk about the elephant in the room. Uraraka confronting Bakugo. And you know what? I had so much fun recording that. I have always loved Uraraka. I've always loved Uraraka, you know, like, her fierce, like, you know, she's fierce. She's like, obviously she's sweet, she's a bubbly girl, but she's also fierce and has that kapow to her. And I just love with fan fictions, like, to that, when they, like, you know, touch upon that, because that is so, like, I love it. I love this chapter. It got a little angsty at the end, a little hurt comfort, a little, but, you know, or not hurt comfort, because we weren't comfort. It was just a bit of hurt with, like, a sprinkle of, like, comfort. But, like, not too much hurt, but not too much comfort. Whatever. You get my point. As always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. I forgot my outro. Give me a second. Make sure to join our community server. Link is in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.